morning, you're watching One News Now Markets. I'm Danny Laurel. Here are the top stories of the hour. Inflation likely remained elevated and may have breached 9% in the month of February. The Bangko Sentral projects the consumer price index to have settled within 8.5% to 9.3% in February. The upper end of this forecast is quicker than the 14-year high inflation of 8.7% recorded in January. The Bangko Sentral says upward pressures for last month's inflation are expected to have emanated from higher LPG prices as well as elevated prices of food items such as pork, fish, egg, and sugar. Meanwhile, the lower prices for domestic petroleum, fruits and vegetables, chicken and beef, and the appreciation of the peso could contribute to easing price pressures. That's according to the BSP. The February CPI data will be released next week, March 7th. President Bongbong Marcos says it is high time for the government to prioritize the maritime industry in the country. According to the president, 25% of seafarers around the world are Filipinos. That is why their remittances reached 6.7 billion pesos in 2022. For this reason, President Marcos bared an 8-point maritime industry development plan until 2028. The plan aims to strengthen the maritime industry by upgrading the local and overseas shipping industry, as well as promoting a competitive maritime workforce.
I certainly believe that we can do more, especially here at home. We already hold the most vital ingredient to success, which is our seafarers. All we need to do now is to ensure that we harness their knowledge, make use of their experience, and mobilize our local industries to build an even stronger domestic maritime industry for the benefit of our people.
The president also called on concerned agencies to continue coordinating with the International Maritime Organization and the European Union Committee on Safe Seas. This after the EU raised concerns regarding the Philippines' standard for training seafarers.
I also urge all concerned agencies to pursue a whole-of-government approach to effectively implement the MIDP 2028, as well as to continue communicating with member states of the International Maritime Organization and the European Union Committee on Safe Seas. As a leader, I assure you that this administration will give its unqualified support in your aspirations of building a Philippine maritime industry that will be looked upon with admiration by the region and the rest of the world.
And after 945 long days, Hong Kong is dropping its mask mandate. What does that mean for tourism in the region? Danny Lee reports for us on Bloomberg TV.
Danny, just on that point on Hong Kong, in terms of lifting the mask mandate, where do we stand and what does this mean for tourism and flights into the region?
Yeah, good morning, Danny. So we heard Hong Kong hours ago announce the end of one of the world's longest mask mandates after 945 days. That mandate will end on Wednesday, and that comes as the chief executive of Hong Kong, its city's leader, John Lee, declared complete normalcy with the Asian financial hub returning back to normal, and that announcement made on Tuesday. This can be very important for Hong Kong as it's got a whole range of cultural and sporting festivals taking place over March and April, so this is a very good time. Hong Kong's following Macau in making its announcement on ending mask mandates. It made its announcement on Monday, and Hong Kong has been flying around the world saying Hong Kong is back, but those were only just words, and now we see Hong Kong making clear actions on opening back up to the world after what's been a largely punishing 3 years of very strict COVID rules.
We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now Markets. I'm Danny Laurel. Now, kicking off with my terminal here, you can see the Philippines Manufacturing PMI Index from Standard & Poor's for the month of February sitting at 52.7. Now, anything, of course, above 50 is a signal of expansion in the manufacturing industry. And as it happens, we've actually been at the 13th consecutive month of expansion month on month. However, this is the lowest reading we've seen since November of 2022 and is actually lower than the January print, which was 53.5. Now, let's take a look at how our index is opening this morning. You can see us still below 6,600 levels. Now, when we had talked to our analysts earlier on, 6,600 was a crucial support level that we broke below yesterday, ending at 6,500 levels. We are not back to the 6,600 previous support, but a bit of an upside here. We are up by 31.87. That's about 0.5%. Now, this, of course, comes on the back of an inflation outlook that we're looking at, and I did want to see which ones of our stocks are performing well and bringing up the bourse from the lows that we saw yesterday. You can see Ayala Corporation up by 2.7%, Metro Pacific as well 2.5% up. A couple of our telcos here, PLDT and Globe, on the leaderboard. On the downside, you've got San Miguel sitting this out, down by 3.6%, followed by BPI and Converge. Now, of course, banks and property stocks are in focus today, and I'll pull out the property sector for you guys just to see how we are doing this morning. SM Prime doing pretty well this morning, up by more than 2%, but still a couple of REITs sitting out this rally. This, of course, as the Bangko Sentral is saying that the February inflation might be another 14-year high. So another fresh high there. Of course, they are looking at 8.5 to 9.3%. This is versus the 8.7% that we had already seen in the month of January. And this could stoke, of course, even more tightening from the Bangko Sentral. But we do have some positive news on the upside. On the one hand, you've got IBPAP, which is, of course, the Business Processing Association of the Philippines, saying that they expect the sector's revenue to rise 10% this year, and that could boost the demand for working spaces. They said that the stellar performance in 2022 could bring them back to generating 1.1 million jobs in just last year. That's according to the President, Jack Madrid. And indeed, you've seen the property sector doing pretty well. Now, on to some earnings and a couple of acquisition news. You've got SM Investment Corporations, of course, the parent company of the Seas, that's up by 1.8% today to 867 pesos. That on the back of them reporting full year net income that beat the analysts' estimates. You've got net income up by 53% in 2022. That's to the tune of 61.7 billion pesos on the back of revenue rising 28% year on year to the tune of 553.8 billion pesos. CEO Fred Dibuncio says that all of the business units delivered strong results. Banking, for instance, of course, they do own BDO. That was about 45% of net income. Property, 23%. And get this, SM Retail, 86% increase in 2022 net income. So a lot of people still buying on retail. And still speaking of SM Investments, they have actually just done a tender offer for ToGo. They said that they have approved a tender offer for as many as 378.82 million ToGo shares. It's around 15.4% of the unit. No valuation was given just yet, but you can see that already yesterday the stock surged by as much as 18% on the back of this expectation. They are on a trading halt right now, suspended on the possibility of a delisting from this acquisition of their parent company. On to some global updates. Russian President Vladimir Putin orders officials to tighten control of the border with the Ukraine following a spate of drone attacks that Russian authorities blamed on Kyiv. One drone reportedly crashed some 100 kilometers from Moscow, alarming Russian defenses. Drone attacks supposedly targeted several areas in southern and western Russia, prompting authorities to close the airspace over St. Petersburg. And also on Tuesday, several Russian television stations aired a missile attack warning that officials blamed on a hacking attack. Meanwhile, China says it has been, quote, open and transparent in the search for the origins of COVID-19. This follows a recent report by the United States Department of Energy claiming with low confidence in a classified report that the pandemic began with the leak of a virus from a lab. China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning-Mao told reporters that Beijing has, quote, shared the most data and research results on virus tracing and made important contributions to global virus tracing research. Mao also believes the issue of virus tracing is being politicized. She notes, though, that this will not smear China and will only damage the U.S.'s credibility. And still on China, Chinese President Xi Jinping signaled an overhaul of government agencies ahead of the legislators' annual gathering. Stephen Engel reports on Bloomberg TV.
What's in store at the NPC that starts this weekend?
Yeah, that's the big question, obviously. I've covered a lot of these NPCs/CPPCC, which is known in China as Lianghui, the two meetings that begin in just 4 days' time on March 5th, with, of course, the big gathering of party officials as well as government officials in Beijing. And, you know, times are a little bit different now after Xi Jinping secured that precedence-busting third consecutive term. So he will officially take over that mantle with a team of loyalists. Gone are the days of a standing committee and consensus building. Now it is about a consolidation of power of Xi Jinping. And he has alluded to that consolidation of power by saying that he is going to essentially accelerate reform of many government institutions, including, of course, oversight of the financial industry. He says that will happen at a relatively intensified manner. Now, keep in mind the two gentlemen who are going to be really overseeing financial and economic development are two of his staunchest loyalists. He Lifeng is likely taking over from Liu He as economic czar. He is the National Development and Reform Commission chairman, the NDRC, as well as premier will be Li Qiang, which oversees economic development. Both are loyal supporters, as I said, of Xi Jinping. So broad reform will be on the agenda. We don't have the specifics, but the tea leaves indicate that it's going to be likely the economic development and reform will likely be put more under party control, the CPC control, rather than controlled by the state institutions. So we'll have to see. But of all the National People's Congresses that I have covered, this perhaps is shaping up to be one of the more consequential ones.
She has consolidated power quite clearly within the party. What about broader domestic support?
That's a good question. I just mentioned earlier about, the consensus building within the government. Perhaps those days are gone, especially on the standing committee. But where are the, checks and balances? Well, that might come from society. We saw unprecedented uprisings following, of course, COVID-0 lockdowns and the sheer pain that was being felt across China, in all corners of China. We saw those protests, and that was kind of a referendum, if you will, Chinese style. It's very hard metric to determine how much support Xi Jinping has, but anecdotally and empirical evidence indicates an increasing number of people, most noticeably in the commercial center of Shanghai, which bared that 2-month lockdown earlier last year, that support perhaps for Xi Jinping, skepticism of his policies are probably mounting. So when you get, and Bloomberg News interviewed a number of people on the streets of Shanghai, at least 12 of them, and there is a deep cynicism, if you will, and skepticism of the path forward under Xi. You've been bitten once, you're a little bit more shy the second time around. So for people in Shanghai, they're going to have to be convinced that this path forward on a more consolidated mandate of Xi Jinping is the right way forward.
And And for more updates, visit News 5, the Philippine Star, and Business World online, or visit our website, onenews.ph, for more in-depth analysis. You can also catch One News on the Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News Live anytime, anywhere. I'm Danny Laurel. Join us again at 11:15 a.m. We are One News, all sides, all the time.